Good afternoon, gentlemen, ladies. I'm someone who came from South Korea. Actually, we are presenting two cases of Korean cases. The one of them is the, I could call, golf course side regulations. And the second presenter, Dr. Choi, is presenting the food service businesses. Currently in Korea, food truck regulations is a hot issue. Why not in Seoul, but in New York? So the presidential agenda is a food truck regulations. It spends a lot of time, but I think you can see the food trucks sooner or later in Seoul. Oh, we have some food trucks in Seoul. They are all illegal, okay? Don't try it. Okay, first present case is the golf course side regulations. Yeah, everyone loves golf, but in Korea, we have kind of different kind of perspective on the golf course regulations. Because they feel like golf is a luxury. I know the sports of golf itself is luxury, but in Korean case, we still view that golf is too luxury. It's not normal sports. It's not for ordinary people. So they are very strongly. They have been very strongly regulated in this golf course site construction. Well, this is contents. This morning's introduction. Then we have why do we need regulatory reform, and I briefly introduce what is the process of regulatory reform and the role of the regulatory management system, and finally some conclusions. Well, at least 20 years ago, to construct or to build a golf course, we need at least 3 or 4 years for the construction of the golf site. Income increases in the demand side, and the supply is required, but still they have restricted red tapes for the Korea in the initial stage. So on the supply of the sites, and the market growth is slow. Government believes there are huge benefits if we allow a lot of constructions for the golf course site, because especially at that time, still we have one of the huge big policy is, so to speak, balanced development among nations. As you know, in Korea, everything is concentrated and centralized into Seoul. Population over 10 million people in Seoul, and that is the almost quarter of the whole population of the Korea. And the small, middle-sized, and big corporations are all together in Seoul. So balanced development, so to speak, is a long-time government policies. So this job creation is not on the overall. This job creation benefits is for the local employment. The second thing is the construction industry at the time. As well as we focus on the golf industry too. At that time, as you know, in 80s, our political regime is shift from the militarized to the civilian. And this is transitional period, so to speak. The government tried the 3S policies. I think Japanese is also that kind of policies, screen, sex, and sports. So this sports is because that make people deviate from the political agenda, and they need to boost those golf industries. And must be has a cost, but it is neglected at the first stage, but unintended cost, side effects, environmental problems. Korea is 70% of the Korean whole nations are mountains or mountain types. So the golf is usually, it's not, playing Ferraris, they under the mountains, they have to use the mountains. But there are some conflict, and again, we have a different kind of view for the golf. golf is luxuries. That is for the rich people. That kind of mind is one of the huge obstacles, I believe. Okay, now we request, because income goes up, then they need some other sports, especially golf. So this kind of mindset is changing. Golf is not luxury sports. At that time, still we have time that the golf is still luxury sports, but the cost itself is between compared to the 20 years ago, it's almost less than 0.5%. But again, these regulations as barriers to the market. We have two sides of the regulatory reform for this golf course site regulations. First of all, the supply side, the governments try to reduce tax burden. That was a huge high taxes on the at every single things related to golf, not just golf course itself, entry, and the devices or sports tools. Everything is a high taxes. And they try to reduce this tax burden, and banking loan itself, they reduced the barriers, because at that time the golf course construction is a high rate of return. It's great business, profitable. Nowadays, too many competition, but that 20 years ago, that was a great business. And demand side, again, income increases. Well, at that time, in the 80s, 90s, we have a two-digit growth, but one of the interesting things is that we have a, so to speak, 5-day work week. My father's generation, when I was in college, we worked even on Saturday. Can you believe that? Yeah. But policy has been changed into a 5-day work week. So we have available time. So what to do? Yeah, again, 3S. Taxes increases in local governments. Most of the taxes related to the golf course site is going to the local governments. It's not national tax, it's local tax. And this is the almost estimated returns for the regulatory reform, local economy effect, job creation, and on the basis of 18-hole membership, this kind of benefits, financial benefits. And the process of regulatory reform. Before 2003, we only focused on some people's view, change to the people's view of golf. Again, recategorizing golf from luxury to normal, and reduction of tax burden. But there is some pitfalls. Well, this is one of the reasons why we don't have a strong regulatory management system. First of all, the policy inconsistency. They try to reduce a bundle of golf course business and allowing a wide range of facilities, for example, the hotels and other things. But still, government strengthened the site regulation itself. I'm not sure about the other countries, but the strongest regulation in Korea is land and site regulations. And this time, 2003 and 2004, is very important because the focus itself is changed. They try to mitigate first golf course site regulation, and second, restrictions on the construction, accommodations, again, hotel. And simultaneously, they increased the preserved land regulations by 20 to 25%. And after 2004, some systems are have been equipped. For example, impact assessment system, and establishing a business difficulties resolution center, and evaluating strategy projects and regulatory reform. Those have been implemented by the government, and these assessment systems reinforced each other to make the regulatory system. And what happened? Okay, this is the outcome of the regulatory reform. This is my paper is black. See here, we have a people. I think this is visit of the people, and this is place. So this is the users, like from 2 million to now, or somewhere around 20 million people. So almost 10. And this is the places of the golf course, like from less than 25 to now it's over 250 sites in Korea. It's a huge, dramatic increase. And, there must be some, different kind of trend here, but again, this is finance crisis. One of the interesting things is that the people, users of the golf course site is usually government officers. So since the IMF crisis, they all lose the customers. And yeah, this is basically the outcome of the regulatory reform. Okay, and this is the brief summary of the regulatory management system. As you know, as I mentioned in the first workshop, the regulatory management itself is established in 1998 with the regulatory reform committee. But there's some tuning of the regulatory system itself. They try to make more realistic, more feasible to the regulatory systems. Especially, this is very, I think interesting to me because Korean government usually, they drives everything. We are very centralized government system. Again, the Confucian culture makes the government is always, located in the center. But now government is trying to have a more European or Anglo-Saxon type of governance system. So public consultation is now very crucial for the regulatory management system. So this is a regulatory reform task force. Again, this is the system, the governments who try to listen from the private industries. And they have changed some of the names, but still they have a core roles. And BLDC again, and public contest. So they try to get more voices from the outside. Okay. Now, I love the Adam Smith and the virtue of the division of labor. The second case is from Dr. Choi. Please.
Yes, this case on open hour of food service business at the initial stage of regulatory reforms. At the same time, we are launching the regulatory reform drive in 1998. I just move to the content. That reform was issued. The time zones separated from before 1998 and after. There are four contents. First one is the open hour restrictions. Before 1998, almost major cities until midnight, and seaport areas until 2 o'clock, and no regulation in Jeju Island is there free zones for tourism and special investment areas. This regulation was changed like this right-hand side. No restriction on September 1998 at last and general restaurant, and no restriction from March 1999 at karaoke and entertainment bar. These categories are explained under the stack expressions. Four categories of food service businesses. First one is the last restaurant, which is like a snack bar. There provided cooking and selling foods such as tea and fast food, but no alcoholic drinking. And the second one is general restaurant, is like ordinary restaurants providing foods by cooking and selling with alcoholic drinking. And third one is karaoke bar by providing food with alcohol, drinking, and singing. At the time, singing at the restaurant is a very popular trend in Korea. And the fourth, last one is the entertainment bar. The cooking, selling food, alcohol drinking, singing, and cross dancing allowed. Now move to the second categories, spot raids and inspections with the open hour regulations. There are this kind of inspections and regulatory behavior by the local authority and police. The strict enforcement and penalty violating over this restricted time. And then after 1998, no spot raids and inspection from the above period. And also at the time was the deliberation measures taken to the license of startup of restaurants. Before 1998, the public systems very strict exam with confirmation by the local authorities. Which one is changed like this? Flexible report systems with an export complement by confirmation from November 1998.
Professor Choi, you have only 5 minutes at most, so please accelerate that, move on to the more interesting ones.
Okay, it's that kind of deliberations initiated by the Line Ministry of Welfare and Public Health. The processing period also deliberated is reducing the processing periods. Second one is impetus for the open hour reform is there are three elements I pointed out. External pressure, the economic crisis of 1998, and also establishing the strong regulatory reform body and the drive. Also, pointed out the inefficiency of government interventions. Second one is more in detailed things, institutional arrangement for regulatory reform. This enactment and enforcing is already spoken by Professor Kim. I'm to the internal organizational dynamics. They are establishing the central reform drive, which authority of reviewing and oversight the reform work of ministries and agencies. And also we set targets to full government ministries to eliminate the existing regulations by half. And also the regulatory reform committees to push the reform works with the deadline of the 1998, which made the first reform track linking with the policy process, which one is expressed in the political willingness to reform and urgency of reform at the time. The third one is the sequence of events. It's even though we tried to fast track on regulatory reforms, there was relating these cases on dealing with the opposition groups. First, the regulatory reform committees proposed this reform scheme of liberating the open hour restrictions of the food service business, the in the government, there are two types of response. Central ministry slightly opposed that reforms with hesitation to take these options by the regulatory reform committee. However, the local government officials, as the frontline regulators, they are welcomed because they lift their burden for the inspecting and on-spot rate check. Of course, the business industries welcomed this reform. However, the civic groups, including women's groups and environmental groups, consumer groups, are strongly opposed that schemes because of the social values. There are concerns about the alcoholic drinking for men and also the juvenile protections. So the regulatory reform committees are directly handling these opposition groups with open dialogue and consultations by step by with the opposition groups from the low levels to the top levels, and also members of the regulatory reform committees directly sit together with the opposition groups, and also prime ministers directly talk with the opposition groups with the high level figures, and it took 3.5 months, I remember, and then we make compromise or some agreement between government and the opposition groups to make complementary measures to protect the social values with the in detailed policy architectures and separately approached to the degree of the social values. And also we accept these opposing groups' representatives to the reform bodies as a member of the regulatory reform committees. So this reform could happen by establishing the regulatory reform systems, and also we enforcing that institutions. So I think the outcome of this reform is to enjoy the freedom of open hour, the restaurants. Also, people enjoy such kind of outdoor dining life. And also the last chart showed the change, the number of the food service business in 1997 and 1998 is very difficult times. Many bankruptcies, the unemployment took place. However, from the 1999 and 2000, after that, the number of such kind of restaurants is increasing. And also nowadays, there's a lot of coffee shops in Seoul. I think it's as a result of this kind of reforms. I will start here. Thank you.